Happening now, the White House is preparing for President Trump's trip to Pennsylvania today. He is expected to highlight his economic record. A Fox News national survey found in November that 76% of voters see the economy negatively. But here's how the president recently described it.
The word affordability is a con job. They use the word affordability. It's a Democrat hoax. Look, affordability is a hoax.
Joining us now is Republican Congressman Dan Meuser of Pennsylvania. He serves on the House Financial Services Committee, and he is attending the president's event today. Hi, Congressman. Thank you so much for coming on. So President Trump can point to the lowering of prices of some goods like pharmaceuticals, eggs, and gasoline. But government figures show grocery prices and other cost of living items are up, and public perception is that he's trying to make the economy sound better than it is. What do you want to hear from him today?
Hi, Pamela. Nice to be with you and Wolf. Well, what I hope to hear is setting the stage as to where we were a year ago, 12 months ago, 13 months ago, and the direction we were going on, which was, frankly, open borders, excessive spending, an assault basically on domestic energy, which was driving gasoline prices up, and really not a pro-growth economic plan. They were talking higher taxes. I'm in Congress, so I saw all the new regulations that were coming out. So versus where we are today, and where we are today is a closed border, but from an economic standpoint, just a little while ago, you showed that grocery prices were up 1.4% since President Trump got into office. That's pretty good. That's lower than the average inflation rate that existed. Certainly gasoline is down, maybe not as much as we would like, but it's a lot of people are feeling a big difference, as much as $1 difference in a gallon of gasoline. And we have a lot of pro-growth initiatives. We've assured lower taxes. We've assured investment that's taking place. We've deregulated to a large degree the banks. So we're going to have more equity flowing and more loans being made to small businesses. So that's what we're going to talk about, where we're going from here, as well as the progress that's been made.
But, you say, look at the groceries, it hasn't gone up all that much. But when you talk to Americans, and I'm sure you've been hearing from constituents, according to this Fox News national survey, large numbers overall and among Republicans say their costs for groceries, utilities, healthcare, and housing have gone up this year. Even if you dispute whose fault it is for the current economic state, it's President Trump, right, who is now in office. Voters are looking at him to bring relief. And you have this conservative-leaning tax foundation saying that his own policies, the tariff policy, has raised the average American household's cost this year by $1,200. So what do you say to Americans who feel like President Trump overpromised and underdelivered on the economy when he campaigned saying, I alone can fix it?
Yeah. Well, Pamela, there's a lot of data that shows that wages have increased more than inflation this year. So that certainly addresses the affordability end of things. And look, regarding trade, we were just simply getting taken advantage of. We've had one of the lowest trade deficits ever, very recently came out. GDP is strong. Look, we need to be a supply side economy. I know that's a term from the Reagan days. And by the way, it took Ronald Reagan 2 years, not 1 year, as we think we've addressed inflation, still needs to come down. And the cost increases that occurred during the Biden administration, which was 20%, there's no getting around that, it was 20% increases, need to be further mitigated. But the trade policies, look, we mentioned eggs prices down. I sometimes say you got to break a few eggs in order to make an omelet. So what we've had to do is create new trade agreements. And that was a little bit tough with China, with Europe, with India, with these trading partners that were charging us 60, 70%, and we were charging them 3%. So as these trade deals get created, as opposed to tariffs, we know there's going to be some new markets opened up and should really drive American production even higher than just our own consumers.
But we've heard from other Republican Congress members who have said, look, I'm hearing from my constituents, and they're really concerned about the cost of living right now. So you can talk about, looking ahead and looking back at what may have led to this moment. But what matters is how Americans feel, right? I mean, Republicans criticized Biden for calling inflation transitory. They said that he made a big blunder, undermining or sort of playing down what Americans were feeling. I want to play sound from your Republican colleague in the House, Brian Fitzpatrick, about what he said he's hearing from his constituents.
If you're living paycheck to paycheck, which most Americans are, and you can't afford to make ends meet, nothing else matters other than that. And they want to know that people are going to have a plan to help fix that.
Has your party been making this enough of a focus? Affordability?
I don't think they have.
This comes as President Trump says the economy is A++++++, and that affordability is a hoax. Do you agree with your Republican colleague?
Look, what people are feeling is up to those individuals. I have the same type of constituents. They're going to the grocery stores. They're going elsewhere. They're buying gifts for Christmas. Prices were raised dramatically, and I'm not putting blame, but because of the Biden policies. Let's stick to policies. Our policies, the president's policies, are about lowering costs via supply side, lowering taxes, lowering regulations, making it more efficient, lowering cost of energy. Let's face it, they had a war on energy. We're trying to be energy dominant with domestic energy. And we're about more investment and as well as more supply. The more supply, when supply exceeds demand, that's when real inflation comes down. That's when costs come down. And that's definitely what we're working on. And even just look at this. Look at what occurred we don't even talk about this, what's happening with pharmaceuticals. The president already has lowered
I mentioned
a
they've gone
slew,
down.
many,
I did mention that. I did mention that. And we should look at the full picture.
I said we didn't mention it enough.
But let me just follow up with you because
agree.
I mentioned the conservative-leaning think tank, the Tax Foundation, said due to Trump's policies, the average household would pay an extra $1,200. So at what point does President Trump need to take full ownership and Republicans need to take full ownership that this is their economy?
We have to look at that because I don't understand where those numbers can come from. Look, the tariffs, everything we've done is about reducing manufacturing costs, reducing consumer costs, putting more money in Americans' pockets. Everything that we do is about creating affordability. Now, throw tariffs in there. You could say, well, what about tariffs? Tariffs actually affect 5% of the marketplace. So it's a minimal increase, if any, but it is also an equalizing of us being taken advantage of in the past. So what I believe is the main problem is people don't necessarily believe, they don't have the confidence that we're going to have lower prices. And once that starts occurring, and we fully believe it will, because everything's in place. We've cut waste. We've lowered taxes. The regulations are lower. Energy costs are lowered. We've got more investment. Interest rates are going to come down. Investment is taking place. Manufacturers are gearing up with more capital investment. So all of this is happening under President Trump's watch, was not happening under Biden's watch. Inflation will come down, therefore. We will have a roaring manufacturing year next year. Interest rates will come down. Housing will improve. These are the things I think are happening and will continue to occur. And healthcare costs will come down, which is a big number on American families.
Well, that's a big concern because a lot of families are worried their premiums are going to double if something isn't done, if Congress doesn't act by the end of the year. Congressman Dan Meuser, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Pamela,